In the fall of 2011, a group of community volunteers from Amherst, New York, came together with their camcorders and spent some time videotaping the people, places, and happenings of the Amherst area.
The arts, visual and performing, in Amherst are prolific.
You walk in the front doors of this place and it is just like another world. And it's right there in the middle of town. I think it's just marvelous.
They came back with some fascinating pictures and wonderful stories.
For over 30 years, an Amherst resident has been collecting donations from the people of Western New York and shipping them to the people of Nicaragua.
This is Our Town, Amherst. Broadcast of Our Town, Amherst is made possible by the generous support of Catholic Health.
I never thought I'd have heart surgery at 43. Never saw it coming. But I knew where to go when it did.
And by the members of WNED. Thank you.
My name is Dave Sherman, and I picked the topic Main Street, U.S.A. I started historically, right around the corner of Main and Garrison, where during the War of 1812, when General Winfield Scott was wounded at Lundy's Lane in Canada, this is where he was brought back to convalesce, because at this point, Buffalo had been burned. The other plaque marks the presence of the Army Hospital and the barracks that were built here. Closer to the end of the war in 1814, there could have been as many as 5,000 to 6,000 troops, both British and American. There were at least 2,000 patients on both sides of the conflict who were in the hospital. Maybe not even half a mile is the 1812 cemetery. There are the remains of as many as 600 British and American soldiers buried there in mass graves. Garrison Park is an enigma. That is where the Army Hospital was, but it perplexes me because nothing has been built on that parcel since the hospital. It's a great community park. The falls, that's the whole genesis of what became Williamsville, was the water power in the mill. I've actually been down in the lowest level where the big gears are, where the 200-year-old mechanism is still intact. And when you're down there and you can hear the creek rushing by, it's like a spiritual moment that you know this is how this community began. The Eagle House was built by a gentleman named Oziel Smith in 1832, and the funny thing is, it's not really funny to him, but when he built it, it burned down the next day by accident. So he rebuilt it, and it was always perceived as a carriage stop between Buffalo and Batavia. It's a great restaurant with a lot of history, and a lot of people don't realize really how old it is. There's a interior design business, D.K. Benson, which was the original Glenn Campbell Chevrolet. I was able to get a video of the old Glenn Campbell dealership and then shoot the modern scene of the interior design place from the same location. The Ice House was a really small block building around Main and Los Robles, where the Hampton Inn is now, and it was probably only about 12 by 12 at the biggest. You'd put a coin in there and get a block of ice. It would come down this big chute. If Amherst had a downtown, it's the business district of Williamsville. I wanted to capture, the modern look too. I wanted to let people see kind of the vitality of Main Street. It's got almost anything you'd want. The farmers market has brought people, antique stores, the library. If you need to pay your traffic ticket at the Village Hall, it's right there. I had a shot I wanted to get of the steeple at St. Peter and Paul Church and the flag. While I was setting up, I just happened to notice a bride walk out of the church to see what the weather was like.
This is a great town. I grew up here as a little kid, and I wouldn't be married anywhere else but here.
It wasn't the royal wedding, but it was, a local person in her local church, in her local community. I've been an active firefighter for 30 years, and it's always been convenient because the old fire hall, when I first joined, was next door to where I work at the Amherst Bee. Now it's across the street. We did have a call for a fire alarm activation, which means that the whole company responds. The Amherst Bee has been around for 133 years. It's been in the same family, the Meeser family, for over 100 years. Originally, the press was driven by a horse. It was a very folksy, utilitarian kind of a newspaper with things like what prices produce was getting at the Buffalo market. I feel lucky to live so close to Main Street and work on Main Street. I can literally walk out my door and go get a slice of pizza, or go get a cup of coffee, or cross the street and go to the village hall, or run across the street and get on a fire truck. I don't think many people are that lucky.
My name is Joan Fishburn. I have been a member of the Amherst Symphony Orchestra for 52 years, so that is the subject I chose to bring to the community. It was started in 1946 by Dr. Joseph Winsens as a community education project, and it was so successful in 1946 that Rotary clubs took on the backing. Dr. Winsens was the conductor for the first 50 years. For the past 15 years, Stephen Thomas has been our conductor. We have 4 concerts a year, but we've added a summer concert, so now I say 5 concerts a year. All concerts are held on a Sunday. Prior to each concert, there are 5 or 6 rehearsals. All of our concerts are held at the Amherst Middle School. It is the largest auditorium in the town of Amherst. It seats approximately 1,375 people. The concert, held October 23rd, was featuring David Kim. David is the concertmaster of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and we were very, very thrilled to have him join us. David is a graduate of Williamsville North High School. Our conductor, Steve Thomas, was a brand new music teacher, and they connected in 1978. So it was a specific thrill for our conductor to bring back David Kim. We opened our concert with a wonderful arrangement of Exodus. We added An American in Paris by Gershwin, which was wonderful fun. We started and introduced David with a rollicking arrangement of Rocky, and then we concluded the concert with a wonderful performance of the Saint-Saëns Violin Concerto with David Kim. And to sit and play the accompaniment to someone who is so gifted elevates all of us and excites us to play our best. The Amherst Symphony Orchestra is a volunteer, full-size symphony orchestra. We do not charge money for anyone to come. We are excited to offer that to this community, and children and young families have the opportunity to learn about a symphony orchestra. We do pass the basket and ask that those who are partaking of this wonderful event will help and share in the cost. We leave our problems of the day and of the week at the door, open up our instrument and join together, playing just as a football team does, our own part, and enjoying the joy of making music. One person I'd like to mention is Ronald Richards, who is playing oboe. It's in an improbable situation. Nobody can play the oboe for 65 years, but Ron is still performing on the oboe. He is the last remaining charter member of the Amherst Symphony Orchestra, and we're grateful to have him. We have people of all ages. There is a geriatric physician, there are many teachers, we have people with various occupations, but what brings us together Monday evenings is our love of making music together. Joanne Folletta, she said, the Amherst Symphony Orchestra is not just a concert, it's an event.
Hi, I'm Lois Schriver, and the topic that I chose is Amherst State Park. Amherst State Park is an area of approximately 90 acres that's located to the south of the village of Williamsville between Main Street and Sheridan. Originally, the property did belong to John Blocher, and the property was donated to the Sisters of St. Francis. Over the years, as the sisters didn't need as much space as they had, they decided to sell the property. So the town in New York State purchased the property, and that is now Amherst State Park. The mother house is such a predominating feature of the park. The first thing you see is this imposing structure with the steeple and the spire. The gentleman who designed the mother house also designed Buffalo City Hall around that same period of time. The carvings on the front of the building are beautiful. This past year, they've been working on constructing a Veterans Memorial, which is going to be absolutely beautiful. The stonemasons were laying a lot of the limestone block. They got to the point where the cap rock went on, and on the one side of the circle will be the memorial plaques where the names will be carved. There is also going to be a small water feature at that end of the memorial, with each military unit having their insignia. We've been developing an arboretum. By definition, an arboretum is an area of woody plants where they can be studied for scientific, educational, and ornamental reasons. It is such an expanse of natural open space. There is such a variety of foliage. You have the creek. You have all kinds of wildlife there. And still, when you walk into the park, there's a serenity. You can just hear the birds chirping. You can be so at peace with yourself walking around the park and just shrug off all the cares and troubles and enjoy it and be to yourself, in a sense. You always hear the sound of the creek, and it's just so soothing. People do put in near the bridge at Ellicott Creek, and 2 gentlemen did that. We have beaver in the park. I have one picture of the chomping, where they're bringing down trees. We have planting events or weeding events, or some of the folks come out and water. I would say we're probably somewhere between 800 and 1,000 hours of volunteer work just this past year. The Sisters of St. Francis were celebrating their 150th year of service. They had a ceremony at the park. They decided to donate 250 daffodil bulbs. We planted those daffodil bulbs in drifts. The orchard is just such an expanse of green space. And of course, hopefully in the next few years, we're going to be planting some fruit trees and nut trees to try to restore the orchard. Everybody knows that there are deer in the park, but you don't always see them. In the distance, I saw something, and it looked like it was coming toward me, and I realized that it was a doe and her 2 fawns. I was able to get a shot of them bounding off back into the woods, and literally their little white fannies and their tails sticking up straight, and that's what you see. Amherst State Park is probably one of the best kept secrets in the town of Amherst. I would say a tremendous number of people in the town don't even know that there is an Amherst State Park, let alone a state park within the town limits.
I am Julianna Fiddler-Woite. I'm the great-great-granddaughter of Michael Snyder, the namesake of our hamlet, and my topic was Snyder's hidden history. There were a lot of things in Snyder that people don't necessarily know have historical significance. And I wanted to make sure that everybody knew these buildings they drove past every day play an important role on where the village of Snyder came from, and give them a little clue. The Snyder family first came here in 1832, and they settled at the corner of Main Street and Harlem Road in a log cabin. After the Snyder father, Abraham, disappeared and was murdered, his son Michael took over at the age of 17 to provide for his family. And he built the Snyder homestead at the northeast corner of Main Street and Harlem Road. And from that homestead, he opened Snyder's first mercantile And he had a ballroom on the second floor. He turned it into Snyder's Inn. He ran a justice of the peace out of there. He was pretty much trying to be a one-man village all in and of himself. Today, that has turned into Manhattan Bagel and a series of retail shops. The reason that we are named Snyder in the first place is because Michael Snyder was Snyder's first postmaster. So it's a very significant photograph showing Michael Snyder standing in front of the post office building. And what's interesting is now Snyder Square is on that corner, and inside Snyder Square is a post office annex. So after a number of years, it's like the post office came home. The Beck's Hotel is on the other corner, and it was originally a building that stood right at the southeast corner of Main Street and Harlem Road and served as a hotel and a general store. Sometime in the 1930s, the building was picked up and moved backwards down Harlem Road and turned for the entrance to face Harlem instead of Main, and the building still stands there today and is used for various law offices and businesses. Amherst High School is significant in Snyder's history because it was the first centralized high school in New York State. It combined the districts of Snyder and Eggertsville. Before that, any of the school children, once they reached high school level, had to pay tuition to either go to the city of Buffalo or to Williamsville. Also served the purpose of giving a lot of men in the Snyder area work during the Depression. I have photographs of construction from the front and proof that in September of 1930, when it was finished and students began coming, it still wasn't technically finished. And it was built on 20 acres of the Pomeroy farm. I tried to show the athletic fields in the back. I was there during a football game.
We don't mess around, we don't mess around, we don't mess around, we just get down.
With the installation of the trolley service between Williamsville and Buffalo, it gave all the prominent businessmen in Buffalo a chance to live in what was called the countryside of Snyder and still be able to make it into work every day. Charles Burkhart developed the Audubon Terrace, which was meant to entice the wealthy businessmen to come live in the countryside of Snyder. He tried to make it appear as if they were lavish country estates. The most distinguishing feature of the Audubon Terrace is the street furniture. Darwin Drive has a series of stone artwork at the corners. It has an amazing street sign where you can actually see a little figure of Charles Darwin sitting at his desk with a skull and a snail. He continued that trend through Lamarck Drive. Smallwood has gigantic arches as you enter it. Damon College hosts some of Snyder's most amazing hidden history. Two of the buildings on the college campus are old mansions from Snyder families. Right at the corner of Main Street in Gettsville, you find Curtis Hall, which was originally the Copeland Mansion. It was built by Rosa Copeland's two sons, and they each had their own wing. It's kind of like two mansions connected by a common living area, and then they called it a garage, but it's bigger than my house, and that's where their mother lived. Also on the campus, you have a very large Renaissance-style mansion that was owned by the Crouch family. It is one of the most beautiful pieces of architecture in the area, and it is now Rosary Hall. In the 1800s, any travelers into the city of Buffalo had to pay a toll. The gatekeepers lived in a home next to the toll gate, and that house still stands. Located on Main Street near the corner of Gettsville. After the toll gate closed in 1899, it was sold, and it has passed through a series of families, and it is currently owned by a family who is restoring it. It is one of the oldest pieces that we have and has a great connection to our history. It is rumored that the archway to the gatehouse contains parts of the original toll gate that stood in Main Street. Charles Landel was a local builder who built many of the homes in Snyder and in the village of Williamsville. His homestead stood on Main Street in Snyder. It remained in the family until 1980 when it was sold, and in November of 2011, Charles Landel's great-grandson and his family have moved back into the Landel homestead, and it is once again part of the family that built it. On the Park School property is one of the oldest buildings in Snyder. It is a little stone house that has a fascinating history of its own. It has served the purpose of a house for various families in the village, the Schenk family for one. It has been the Snyder Museum of Natural History in the early 1900s. But most significantly, the little stone house on Harlem Road was reportedly a stop on the Underground Railroad. This topic is very close to my heart. Fundamentally, this topic is a part of who I am. I am a living piece of Snyder history, and I want to make sure that everybody out there appreciates the awesome things that are in Snyder, and they continue to spread the word of where we came from and how great we want to be.
I'm Ruth Falbo. I live in Amherst, have for 40 plus years now. I have chosen to do a segment for the Our Town Amherst program on Williamsville Village, the Meeting House, and the Historical Society. It's a former church on Main Street that I have driven by for years and years and years, and only recently stopped in to see what that quaint little building was, and I have just been thrilled with it ever since. It's a church that was built in 1871 by the Disciples of Christ. On top of the church is a steeple that at one point had to be removed and rebuilt. If there's no one else there when you walk in, what you're greeted with is this glow. The light coming in through the stained glass windows it's just breathtaking. You have to notice the beautiful curved pews that have been lovingly restored. The platform itself has a trap door under which is the baptistry. The building has been used for weddings, for memorial services, art exhibits, and it is easily available just by contacting Village Hall. One of the most recent events is a concert by the Buffalo Friends of Folk Music, who perform there quite frequently. The visiting artists were a group called Small Potatoes. Jackie Manning, who is the female soloist in this pair, plays a variety of instruments. She even did some of her numbers in sign language, which was really touching.
Let me rise like a bird.
Rick Prezioso is the other one in that group. Their opening act was Brian and Peg and Mary Kate, who did several numbers that were just charming. The History Museum, which is upstairs, is pretty fascinating. There are cases of artifacts and collectibles and wonderful little items that people have donated. Just nice remembrances. Mary Lothar is president of the Board of Trustees of the Historical Society, and also is a former trustee of the Village Board in Williamsville and a former mayor of the Village of Williamsville.
All these pews were sent out and redone and refinished and then brought back in, and it was like a giant jigsaw puzzle to put all the pews back where they had to go. So
she loves the place, and it shows. You walk in the front doors of this place, and it is just like another world. And it's right there in the middle of town, which is, I think, is just marvelous.
My name's Kennedy Schultz, and I chose the topic of the Ellicott Creek Trailway. It's a bike path on the west side of Amherst. I see the Trailway as something that connects a lot of different types of populations through the town. The Trailway goes by the Weinberg campus, which focuses a lot on senior living. It's a nice place for people to have access to where they can get some exercise. Jewish Community Center is right across from the Trailway too. And then as you go through UB, the closer you get to the campus, you see a lot more of the younger students riding bikes or jogging and talking with their friends, and kind of gives you a sense of that activity and that busyness that goes on around the campus. There's a section near the Audubon golf course where there's a memorial for the victims of 9/11. And there's a beautiful grove of trees that have been planted as well. The Trailway runs primarily along Ellicott Creek. So you see the water there, some ducks sometimes. There's some places where the creek comes right up against the Trailway. There's a beautiful nature along the Trailways. Seems to draw families there. People riding their bikes with their kids, walking their dogs. You sort of saw a good diversity of people. This time of year was perfect because the colors of the leaves were changing, and so there was some really pretty trees. There's a lot of sections where there's memorial trees with plaques at the base of them. I didn't realize how many parts of the town you could really see and interact with as you went along the Trailway. By taking a stroll or a bike ride along this area, you can really get a flavor for the different parts of the town.
I'm Paul Iorio, and my topic was the Zonderosa. For over 30 years, an Amherst resident named Anne-Marie Zahn has been collecting donations from the people of Western New York and shipping them to the people of Nicaragua.
So we packed 1,304 boxes.
Her launching point is known as the Zonderosa.
We packed the bags inside of any spaces that we could find.
It's a house in the suburbs, and you would never think that a tractor trailer is going to connect and hitch up and take all of this stuff away to another continent. Anne-Marie was a Catholic nun, and because her order did not support missionary work, she left the order and truly devoted her life to it. There's three crucial pieces of this puzzle. There's the collection of the donations, there's the packaging, and then of course the shipping out.
Back a little bit, take one of the guys, one of the kids, and tell them to come push the boxes for you.
The glue that holds it all together is pretty much the volunteers. Peggy Lockwood runs the facility, and you'll see she's definitely in charge. This is amazing that this goes on. The logistics involved, even just the logistics of feeding all these students and all these volunteers, is something that you have to see. People may say, why Nicaragua? There's plenty of needy people in Western New York. But I think the key here is that a lot of these donations are rejects from some charitable organizations. So scraps of wood, they'll turn into beautiful furniture. What do you do with a sweater in the tropics? They'll de-stitch the sweater and make hammocks out of it. Even plastic bags are valuable to these people. St. Rita is the patron saint of the Zonderosa.
We put St. Rita out, our patroness, every year, and then we put a medal of her in the container. Every container has the medal of St. Rita because she's the patroness of our town of Teostepe.
People in Western New York are very generous. Peggy and Anne-Marie are both Amherst residents, and you just see that whatever it takes to make it happen, they're going to make it happen. You can touch other people's lives if you're really committed to it. You can really change people's lives if you're really committed to it.
I'm Michael Thompson, and I chose serving our community through military service. My stepfather's in the Navy right now. He's in the Persian Gulf. And many other families in Amherst have to go through things like this. My stepfather is on the Amherst Town Board. The other members of the Amherst Town Board recognize him for his duties on serving our community and country.
And be it further resolved that the Amherst Town Board recognizes the sacrifice of Jay and other reservists who, when called up, willingly
I thought that it would be nice to have the family in this a lot because we're the ones that are sacrificing him not being here, kind of a missing piece of our family. And my 1-year-old brother, Richard, kind of wondering where's Dada. For 2 months, he was in Newport, Rhode Island doing training. And for a couple days last week, he actually was able to come back and reunite with all of us. And it was a great moment. We were all just so happy that we got these extra days just to spend with him.
You got the surprise tonight.
Right before he left, he decided, since he's not really going to be here for these holidays, that he got us an actual Christmas tree, which we have sitting in our hallway right now that he decorated. On Halloween, we had many trick-or-treaters kind of smirk in the hallway and laugh. A lot of our neighbors are very supportive of him serving our country and community by going overseas, and they all volunteered to help us. It's definitely a lot of work at home. I do as much as I can. I'll cut the lawn, I'll watch Kate Oscar, And Richard, well, my mom goes out to do something for work. I'll help my little brother with his homework. And I make sure that there's another, like a father almost in the house. This whole experience is really eye-opening to me, so I know what other families are going through in Amherst or anywhere else in the U.S. that have a father or a mother, aunt or uncle, or any other family member that is representing our country overseas.
I'm Laura Petrocelli, and I chose libraries as my topic. The first library I ever went to was the Williamsville Library, which is on Main Street in Williamsville. It's a small library, and I've probably read almost all the books in one of the sections. I filmed some people and just some of the books. They have little children's programs like story time. One time there's this Harry Potter one that I went to. Around Christmas, they have like Christmas tree lighting in front of the library. Libraries are very important to people in Amherst. We almost lost the Williamsville Library in 2005 because of budget cuts. People were protesting and writing letters and everything. Now the town of Amherst decided to fund the Williamsville Library. The Audubon Library, which is the Amherst main central library, is really big, and there's so many books, and it's really awesome. There's a free internet, and you can search for books on the computers. There's a whole science fiction section and a mystery one, and they have a ton of books. We literally go there and get as many books as we can carry till we can't carry anymore, and then we have to leave. And the last time I was there, I asked my mom if we could live there because it's so big and I love to read. The libraries are really important, and we should try to preserve them. Even though now we're in like a technological age, books are still really important.
I'm Caroline Connors, and I chose to film at the Park School of Buffalo, which is the school I go to. I'm a freshman there. It's in Snyder, New York. It's on Harlem Road. It was founded in 1912. We're getting ready to celebrate the centennial. It's a really small school. I think the high school has about 100 students in it right now. That's another thing I like about Park, is that it's like pre-K through 12th grade. I started at the pond, really peaceful there. We have a marsh also. We have like snapping turtles down there. There's like a nice dock that goes out onto the pond. That was one of my favorite places to learn. Chapin is the building where we have like the library and the Spanish rooms and the music room, the computer lab. There's a lot of history behind the school. My favorite building is definitely Hamlin. It used to be Chauncey Hamlin's farmhouse. He helped found the Buffalo Museum of Science. So we also have a stone house where now the third grade teacher lives. That used to be a part of the Underground Railroad. At Park, it's really about active learning. I wouldn't want to go to any other school. I really like the campus and the people there and the teachers.
My name is Robert Collins, according to the government, but my 16 grandchildren call me Papa Bob, so I'll go with that. The subjects that I've chosen are the Amherst Dog Park, Dan Lake Park, and Fetto Park. I was very impressed by the fact that they formed a nonprofit foundation and with their own money and donations built the park. The dogs were really running around. What a show they put on. I was very fortunate that the directors happened to come that day.
A small group of people got together about 10 years ago to talk about having a dog park for several reasons. One, because there's about 20,000 dogs in the town of Amherst.
Right, go play, go play, go on.
A man and his daughter, a dog came up, a little puppy, into the girl's arms, little teenage girl, accused of Button. And she was petting that dog, sort of portrayed what all the Paul Park is about. It's for the people to enjoy their dogs. Dan Lake Park. It was originally just a little pond, and it was enlarged considerably for flood control purposes into a lake that's probably about a mile long. It's a little hard to convince people that we should have a wetland, So I was delighted when the town of Amherst decided to call it a park, which protects it. There's a place where you can launch a canoe or a little boat and go fishing. Fetto Park is about 1.5 acres, not too far from my house. It's designed for passive recreation. And our Harlem Road, north of Maine Residential Association, we've had donations and put up a wall and a real beautiful archway right at the beginning. And us volunteers put in a garden. About 2 years ago, there was a chance to get some seedlings free from Erie County. And we didn't have water in the park, so I made a tree nursery in my backyard, and I took care of the trees. And most of them are at least chest high, and some are up 15 feet. Next year, we're going to have a few volunteers and put them around the park. The people in the town working as volunteers have really made Amherst a very, very successful community.
My name's Dan Dolloff. I live in Eggertsville, and I wanted to highlight the different Vills of Amherst: Eggertsville, Snyder, Swarmsville, and Gettsville. Each one of the Vills essentially has a gas station, a bank, a post office, and a fire station. So I really wanted to try to highlight those elements, but also look at the history and the architectural aspects. I think Gettsville actually has the most history that's probably untouched. I found an old barn, which I had seen from the road, but never took the time to stop. It was called the Port of Entry Antique Shop. And it used to have a restaurant that I actually went to years ago. And I also tried to highlight some of the probably original structures. There's a red house, and I got a close-up of the wood. And either it's a reproduction or the wood slats were original. And it's really fascinating just to see that. There's a great white house in Gettsville that has a nice porch, and I try to capture some of the architectural details. Libro's restaurant modernized the building, but going in there, you definitely get a sense that, hey, this is a place that's been around for a while, and of course, it's a very successful restaurant. You're in Gettsville when you're in Libro's. To me, Swarmsville is another little historic center. Swarmsville spans Amherst and Clarence. Again, I try to highlight some architecture. In addition to successful businesses there, the Swarmsville station, which has a nice porch, and you can tell it gets heavy traffic. I live in Eggertsville. To me, Eggertsville is a little bigger than Swarmsville and Gettsville. But Eggertsville, I think, really could be highlighted in terms of investment and businesses going there. Main and Egger gets a lot of traffic. There's successful businesses there. Ziggy's, there's Brunner's, the bar, there's St. Benedict's. So there's a lot of good anchors to the community. That's another element of these villas. There's usually a church nearby. At the corner of Main and Egger, I also highlighted a big office building, which at one time was a store. I thought there was a lot of interesting architectural things about that store, and in the background you can see Sacred Heart, Eggertsville Hose Company. Now it's been repurposed for a disability museum for People Inc. I feel proud as an Amherst resident that you can reinvest in these buildings and keep them in great shape. One of my favorite buildings in Amherst is in Snyder, what I call the old Harlem Road School. I think that's a beautiful building. The town of Amherst has repurposed that building to really allow for a lot of community activity to happen without even touching the architecture. In Snyder, I also took a few steps off of the Main and Harlem intersection, and there was Snyder Square. I really wanted to highlight the brickwork. In that plaza, there was also a chocolate shop, which is relatively new. The other thing I really like about Snyder Square is they have a little post office in there. I didn't dig inside the history, inside the buildings, but from an outsider's perspective, just to appreciate the architecture and realize, hey, you can take an old building and make a great business out of it.
Hi, I'm Chris Falbo. I live in Williamsville. The topic I have chosen today for this program is the Williamsville Depot and Lehigh Memory Trail, which was established in 1990 by the village of Williamsville. There were numerous people walking and running the trail. One of my favorite places. What you would see along the trail is the Williamsville Depot. The depot is no longer in use. It was built in 1896 as a passenger and freight depot by the Lehigh Valley Railroad. They are restoring it to make it a small museum and meeting space. It is owned by the Western New York Railway Historical Society, which I'm actually a member myself. The caboose, built in 1937 by the Lehigh Valley Railroad, is the first steel caboose they ever made. And it's in the northeastern style, which gives you two double-paned windows on each side of the caboose. It is currently being restored inside and out.
Get the ice box. Put your ice in there and your food in the bottom. Then they all had their own lockers here. And this was...
We visited the main lobby area, which has some old luggage and different railroad memorabilia. The agent's office, which is where people would buy their tickets, and the telegraph station was there. There are pictures on the wall that display the depot before the society had gotten it, which was in pretty bad shape. Mark Clapadio and John Bond were working on replacing wood in the lobby. In the dormers of the building, there is stained glass that was uncovered during the restoration. Western New York Railway Historical Society is looking for volunteers to help with the restoration. I'm a big fan of trains, and I love railroad history. It's a wonderful piece of Williamsville history.
Hi, my name is Katie Flemming.
And hi, I'm Kathy Flemming, and we chose the Northtown Center at Amherst to report on. The Northtown Center is such a gem in the town of Amherst. The first ice rink there was back in 1964, when many of us in the 60s grew up there going to the rec center on Friday night. The facility is approximately 190,000 square feet, which covers about 4 acres and is adjacent to the University of Buffalo. It features 3 NHL-sized rinks and 1 Olympic rink. 3 of the 4 arenas are used year-round for recreational open skating, youth, adult, U.S.A. hockey, figure skating, and inline hockey. And even the Buffalo Sabres use it as their practice ice. Harvey, he is a staple. He skates 5 days a week, and he pretty much has the run of the place. And if you go in there on an early morning, you may see him helping younger skaters with stick and puck handling skills.
Pretty soon, my mom's gonna bring me there and teach me how to skate.
Amherst is a place to go and launch your dream. Many NHL stars had their beginning skating careers at the Northtown Center. Todd Marchant and Jack Brownscheitel are 2 of those. They have a preschool and an after-school program. There's a restaurant, a pro shop, and one of the largest athletic training facilities there, too. My high school sweetheart played baseball there, and I still have the ball from when he pitched a no-hitter from that game.
Katie Flemming from Army Varsity Cheerleader.
I sing the national anthem for every home football game. The football team is really good this year. We've won every single game except one, and we're going to the playoffs. You'll see Ryan Conchafter, and he's an 8th grade local football star. He led the team to first place to get them into the playoffs.
AMHRST, Amherst is the place to be. From north to south, from east to west, Amherst simply is the best.
The Northtown Center also has had a wonderful economic impact on our community. Within 10 years, 1999 to 2009, the center generated over $35 million in revenue. And in a typical year, in the year 2008, the facility had 1.9 million participants and spectators for all the events there.
It was so much fun to research and gather all the information and learn new things about the Northtown Center.
What the Northtown Center means to individuals is great family fun and wonderful memories.
Hi, I'm Larry Hunter.
I chose the topic of parks and recreation. We have about 26 different parks in the town itself. This is the Great Bear Swamp, and it's on Hopkins Road, right in the center of Amherst. We built a quarter-mile long elevated boardwalk, so it's above some of the ponds and the water areas and the swamp area itself. One of the things that's really nice about the boardwalk is that you not only can take your young children with a stroller, but you can take your dog with you, you can walk your bicycle through this area back in the woods. You can see woodpeckers and deer and fawn and all kinds of birds and flowers and vegetation throughout the year. It's something the entire family can do. Margaret Louise Park is adjacent to the Great Bear Swamp Boardwalk. It does have a nice soccer field and some areas for children to play and walk around and climb. And in the wintertime, sometimes you'll see children and adults doing a little sledding in the park as well. We have 3 golf courses. The 2 most popular are on Maple Road, the Audubon Golf Course, and right across the street is the Audubon Par 3 golf course. There's a fairly good-sized pond in Bassett Park where you'll usually find some geese or ducks throughout the year. It's one of the larger parks in the town, but it's also one of the more open parks. They'll have concerts and bands playing and numerous events for family activities. So you can bring a blanket or some folding chairs and come down in the evening hours and enjoy music outdoors under moonlit skies. The town of Amherst also has a number of bike paths, but probably the most popular or well-known one is referred to as the Amherst Bike Path. It's a little over 5 miles long. It's a paved area, but it's not just a bike path. It's a walk path, it's a jogging path, stroller path, it's walk your dog path. I really like the fact that the path is marked for distances, so if you want to take a 2-mile walk, you know how far you're going. Ellicott Creek flows through much of Amherst, and so there are a number of areas along the creek that people can fish, you can canoe, you can kayak, you can wade. Glen Park, which is in the village of Williamsville. Glen Park offers beautiful waterfalls. I have been there in the springtime when an awful lot of water goes over the falls. In the wintertime when it's snowing. It's a wonderful place to take the kids. It's just a very relaxing, comfortable location. Island Park is also in the village of Williamsville. In fact, it's right behind the town municipal building. It's an actual island in which Ellicott Creek splits off. There's a nice big gazebo covered shelter area. I think it's important that people have an opportunity within their lives to take a step backward and relax and enjoy the peacefulness and the calmness that communities and life offers itself. And in the town of Amherst, we have a number of parks and facilities that do that.
My name is Joycelyn, Bila, and my topic is the Amherst Museum. The Amherst Museum was created to show the history of the village of Amherst. It's an educational institution that I thought was a great topic to choose since I'm very new to the area. The museum was originally owned by the town, I believe, but now it's a not-for-profit organization. There are 10 buildings on the grounds, which are 35 acres. And they're homes which were taken from around the area of Amherst and brought here and restored back to pretty much their original condition. In the center of it all is a gazebo. It's just a beautiful open space to walk and visit all the historic sites. The Transit Road Church was brought, of course, from Transit Road, and it served the German community because I understand that most of the people that originally came here were German. There were 55 third graders that came, and it was fun because they were interacting with the docents. The Pioneer Farm Kitchen was a recreation of inside of a home. They were shown different tools and equipment that was used to cook and farm. The blacksmith shop was very interesting because there was a master blacksmith, and his name is Leon Briggs. He had the forge going, and he made a nail, and he made a fob. It was a nice interactive experience. There was a one-room schoolhouse, the Williamsville schoolhouse. Children were seated at the desks, and they were given tablets to write on with chalk, and the docent spoke to them about what life was like in the school days back then. The barber shop was one of my favorite places. It actually looks like a little gingerbread house. It was owned by a man who was in vaudeville. He and his wife owned it, and he had a barber shop in the front and a photography studio in the back. The main building is the Shaw Building, and that is where the main exhibits are. There's a laundry room which shows different washing machines throughout the years. There's a Victorian quilt section, which is beautiful because it's set up like a living room during the 19th century. And then there's 1950s exhibits, 1960s. There's a radio room which shows all kinds of radios throughout the years. There's a street of storefronts. You could walk down and look through the windows, like window shop. There is a museum gift shop, and it's very quaint, and it's packed with lots of nice goodies. I was surprised at the quantity of items and how really, really nice the museum is. Amherst is a town rich in history, and the museum is actually one of those great things to come and see. It really helped me learn about my town.
Marilyn Ciancio, I chose Visual and Performing Arts in Amherst. The arts, visual and performing in Amherst, are prolific. So to try to get that down to just a few was very difficult. I had a television show that was dedicated to the arts. Between that for 14 years and also the fact that I have volunteered for over 40 years in the arts, I think that was just a perfectly suitable topic. The first thing you'll see is the Catherine Cornell Theater at University at Buffalo. It's in rehearsal for a show, It Goes Like It Goes, from Academy Award-winning composer David Shire. It's performed at the Center for the Arts, which is a state-of-the-art facility, and their main stage. It's a piece which is conceived by Nathan Matthews, who is the director of theater dance at the university, and Terry Berlinger is one of the choreographers. So it's a fabulous piece. This is going to be a great 4 days for the Center for the Arts. We went to a performance of the Zodiac Dance Company, which is directed by Tom Relabate, who is professor and a chair of the theater and dance department. Zodiac puts on performances 2 or 3 times a year. Fabulous group, founded by Linda Swenick. I believe it's in its 38th year now. Beautiful performers. It has been said that a day is lost forever that you haven't danced. Maris Battaglia is the founder and director of American Academy of Ballet. And it's just a beautiful presentation yearly of the Nutcracker Ballet. They do their rehearsals right in the studio. However, they do their performance at the UB Center for the Arts. They have wonderful, wonderful concerts at Slee Hall. People should really get out and see them. They also have a beautiful organ there called the Fisk organ. So they have an organ concert series. The concert manager there is Philip Reard. This happens to be a pre-performance rehearsal, just kind of a warm-up for the Meridian Arts Ensemble. It's part of the Visiting Concert series. O'Connell and Company is a theater that is founded and directed by Mary Kate O'Connell. She's an award-winning actress and singer. Its new home is located at Erie Community College.
Now, our inglorious Buffalo tours continued in city structures
which once were made of hopes and dreams.
This is the 5th different spoofing of Western New York headlines, Buffalo Zings. And it's really so much fun. She also does a presentation twice a month called Diva by Diva, which is a celebration of women. Started out to be only a 3-week gig and ended up to be in its 13th year now. So it's a lot of fun. Damon College is a wonderful college that houses a visual and performing arts center. And right now we're in the art gallery. There's a wonderful exhibition here of Professor Harvey Breverman, who's also from UB. And he says to experience art is to experience life. And to experience life is through its people. So this is what he concentrates on, people. And his sketching is very interesting. Musical Fair Theater is in residency at Damon College. Its founder and artistic director is Randy Kramer. And right now you'll see in performance a class act.
He burned with ambition, but after he made it, he got stalled.
They do a lot of great work there.
Phobias and anyone with phobias would envy.
There's a lot of information in here and so much more to be examined and explored by the public. So get out and go to theaters and concert halls and really enjoy everything, because it's the people that make the arts.
Broadcast of Our Town Amherst is made possible by the generous support of Catholic Health.
I never thought I'd have heart surgery at 43. Never saw it coming. But I knew where to go when it did.
And by the members of WNED. Thank you.